Good evening. Today's show, or tonight's show, is brought to you by Ginkgo biloba. Now, you may be wondering, why would Ginkgo biloba sponsor a show like this? Well, Ginkgo biloba is really good for focus and memory, especially memory. And tonight, Ginkgo biloba would like to sponsor the Steel Sharp and Steel show in hopes that white people will remember that violence happens in Europe, that Russia has been on that bullshit since 1912, and that people have routinely evacuated from white places as well. Ginkgo biloba. Remember when that shit happened? You should.
Thank you so much for that. It also bears mentioning that, like, the only two world wars were centered on that continent. It wasn't no World War Africa. They occupied certain parts of Africa, but that was 100% Hitler and them. And before Hitler and them, from World War One, the Huns in Germany doing their thing, marching across, trying to bring the First Reich and the Second Reich and the Third Reich
I
and
mean, you could take it back to the Vikings.
all the Vikings, every single one of the Vikings. How many Vikings with matted dreadlocks do you recall seeing in those tapestries and things? You know, the network series called The Vikings and Eric the Red and all that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You ever seen Tyrone the Black coming from Norway? Because
Oh,
I've never seen it. You talk about belligerence and civilization and all sorts of things, and all of the people at the center of those conflicts going into other folks' places and things, trying to do things and take over in things.
if there's one thing in that culture, it's I'm gonna come take your shit. I ain't gonna do nothing with it. I might let it rot, sit on the wall, but I want it because you have it, and it's mine now because I'm here.
So we have a little bit something different with the show. You know, we've been fiddling around with different formats and things like that. We started off a few weeks ago doing the lightning round, but the story today and the state of the world today is so big that we are literally going to jump both feet into our big story. So the big story today is twofold. We have, of course, Biden's State of the Union, his very first State of the Union, just after his inauguration. This was his first time to lay out his vision as a person who has been leading the country. His first major speech after his inauguration was one thing, but now he's had a little time at bat. It's certainly been a rocky situation, made no less rocky by the interference from these clowns
Yeah.
who were doing their best impression of the angry girls pointing at the cat meme
Right.
during the State of the Union. And the amazing thing is that this bespectacled Palin wannabe literally thought in her pseudo Matrix outfit that she was preparing herself for some sort of victory. And her colleagues actually immediately jumped right into her throat hole. And these two chicks, who I guess thought they were making a name for themselves, thought maybe they were going to sit up the interruption. Barbies, don't do that to Mattel. That's not fair. That's an old interruption dollar store
Right.
fashion doll.
Verbies.
Yeah, Furbies. Not even. So they thought they were going to make some fundraising for themselves and some opportunities to talk about how they bashed Joe, and then Marjorie Taylor Greene in the aftermath of the State of the Union, since the actual GOP did not put her up to be a person to do a counter argument, as is tradition. She just went on an unhinged word salad of all things drug-addled Hunter Biden, and that's why we're in Ukraine, because he made quite a bit of money over there, didn't he? And all of this foolishness. But as usual, and as to be expected from a Congress critter, completely fact-free. So it looks like Joy has been holding her tongue. So go on ahead and take us into your perceptions of State of the Union.
You can't be a mean girl. That shit only works in the movies. You watched too many movies and you thought you was about to get away with that shit on the floor what was you thinking? Oh, you weren't because you don't. And again, I reiterate, 45 had a certain appeal and charisma that the rest of their party lacks.
They
And
don't
they
have
try
it.
their best to be a bronze medal at best at what he is able to do, and then they end up fucking themselves over because you can't pull it off. You don't have the background, you don't have the clout, you don't have the nostalgic charisma or sex appeal for some white women. You ain't got that. You just some
Mm-mm.
chick out here who looks like every angry soccer mom that is mad because her kid didn't get a chance to play, and you are being treated as such. And the grown-ups in your party are looking at you like if they could have pinched her under the meat of her arm right then, like you used to
Not
get
under
pinched
the
in church.
arm meat.
If they could have pinched her right there, they would just sat her little ass down because she's embarrassing everyone. And that's the thing. You cannot come out embarrassing everyone unless you are the hell and high water, the way Trump used to be. He was the top. You can do what you want. You ain't at the top. You somewhere in lower middle. Lower middle needs to toe the line. And you
No, and they have not done that successfully. Chuck, what was your opinion not only of those two walking embarrassments, but of the content, the actual content of Biden's speech? Because there were some people in our class of melanation who had some things to say about the speech, but I actually thought it was a strong speech, especially given the times that we're living in. What's your perspective on that, Chuck?
Absolutely. Good evening, Joy and Tom, and good evening to all of the Sharpies worldwide. I thought that it was a very well delivered speech. I was somewhat concerned going into it because one of the I don't know, one of the negative things that people like to say about Joe Biden. Speaking of the charisma that Joy was just highlighting, uh, Donald Trump used to call him Sleepy Joe. And no matter how much you like him or how much, he's our guy for those of us who are Democrats and head of the party, there are times later in his career, because, we're old enough to have been around Joe 30, 40 years ago and remembered him when he was younger, more forthright and what have you. There are times when he can put you to sleep when he's talking or on, just giving us not a Zoom, but back during the campaign when he'd be sitting in the bunker and talking. There would be times where I find my head nodding and what have you too. Although I wouldn't have written and said it back then because it was a negative comment that Mr. Trump was making. But I thought that he had a little bit of the old Joe in
Mm-hmm.
terms of delivery. I knew that the speech would be well crafted. Uh, I know that he can read from the teleprompter. So I knew that the speech writers were going to deliver a home run. But as we all know, because we have at some point or various times in our lives had to look at teleprompters or speak from them, it still has to be delivered with some level of verve. And I thought that he definitely did well in that regards. In terms of the substance, which goes back to what the speech writers wrote, and I don't mean to suggest that the speech writers are on an island doing this of themselves. They obviously consult with him and the president and his staff with regards to what messages that he wants to convey. I thought that the messages were strong too, both from a foreign policy standpoint and from a domestic policy standpoint. Let's take the foreign policy first. One of the things that I really appreciated was the fact that there was a level of bipartisan raucous applause that we saw when he was outlining the problem that is Vladimir Putin and
Mm-hmm.
what it is that he suggests that we must do to counterman that particular problem. And some people will say, "Oh, that's just symbolism; it's just optics." But again, sometimes it's symbolism and optics can be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a very serious problem that's going on in Europe. We talked about it last Friday night. I will reiterate it again. I fear that there are a number of our melanated brothers and sisters who, and we can joke about it and we laugh about it, and there's a lot of truth in jest in regards to this is white people, and it is. But the unfortunate byproduct of this is when white people, it can mess us up too. And so if
true.
this thing escalates to nuclear conflagration, like I've said all week, the nukes aren't going to say, okay, black people, we're not going to burn you. We're just going to burn them. No, we're all going down if it turns to that. So I've
And
been a
wait,
little surprised this week by the lack of concern that I have seen from some melanated people, or the, well, we need to stay more woke and just be worried about what happened with Breonna Taylor. And don't get me wrong, we need to be worried about all things, okay? Like I often say, we went to school for 7 hours a day. You took 7 subjects. So all of us should be bright enough to be able to focus on math first period, physics second period, history third period, and what have you, right? But at the end of the day, I thought that was good. I thought there was some unity. From a domestic standpoint, I thought that I really appreciated the unity that we saw when he talked about the infrastructure work that was done. It was not perfect last year. Progressives didn't get everything that we wanted. Conservatives didn't get everything that they wanted. But again, the beauty of the political process is that you have to give a little to get a little. And if we can come to some form of compromise that pushes forward improvements across the country with roads, bridges, putting people to work to make those improvements, I thought that was actually very positive. For the black folks that were making comments, oh, he didn't mention black people. I'm like, well, you don't have to always specifically shout out the homie or do the condescending the blacks that the prior president used to like to do, right? I mean,
my
because
African
again,
American.
yeah,
I love the blacks, my perfect blacks. They're
yeah,
so black. They're amazingly black, and they're black,
Tremendous
right,
blackness.
right.
tremendously black.
Right. If jobs are coming, jobs come for those of all colors who are willing to work. And I know somebody will say, "Oh, but Chuck, yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, I get it. There's discrimination has been since 1619, will be probably for the next 200 and 300 years. But you still have to note progress when progress is due, however incremental it might be. So I thought those were positives. And the last point that I want to make is on the 2 women who made the comments. I thought that they are typical of what we have seen over the last decade from the Republican Party. I mean, there's no other way for me to say it. I mean, from Joe Wilson's "you lie" interruption of President Obama to even Supreme Court Justice Sam Alito's "that's not true" comment, which really like shocked me, because usually the Supreme Court justices sit there at the State of the Union, very solemn, don't even
Mm-hmm.
smile and what have you. So for him to say that really kind of shocked me. So this is just I don't think this was spontaneous. I think those 2 women knew going in that that's what they were going to do. And like you and Joy alluded to at the top, it bombed. It backfired on them.
They did not clear that.
Even
Mm-mm.
agree with the politics, and we do disagree with the politics of many Republicans on the other side of the aisle. At the end of the day, there's still a level of respect that's due to the office. Like, I could not stand Donald Trump. Like, from the time he started running to the time he got inaugurated, couldn't stand him. But I wouldn't sit, if I had had the privilege of sitting in a room in a meeting or in a joint session of Congress, I wouldn't heckle him, because
Right.
again, it's ignorant at the end of the day. And for whatever reason, ignorance seems to be the calling card for the modern day GOP. And to put in a little level of profanity here, I really wish somebody said, "sit y'all asses down" to them in the middle of whatever.
Right.
It was like Joyce said, it just was stupid. They looked dumb, they looked ignorant, and we've got to get better than that, because again, we have some mutual fates that could happen depending on what pops off. Like Joy says, with the Russians, they've been messing
They've
stuff
been on
up.
that bullshit since the early 1900s.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's what it is. So we need to
They,
try to
they
figure out a way to
never
come together.
recovered. Yeah, they've been mad. They've been mad. Like, there's never been a point where they were like, "I'm not mad no more, I'm cool." They've been mad since World War One. They are still mad. Different people take over and continue being mad about a lot of mad and corrupt. Now, I'm not going to say that other governments are corrupt. Every government on the country in the world is corrupt, including ours.
Mm-hmm.
Howsoever, they stay mad, big mad. Like, what's your boy Plies? You mad?
Yeah.
I can't argue with you. You big mad, and that's them all day, every day. And they don't want to argue; they want to fight. They done talking, and it's always been about violence and acquisition
For them. Well, it's interesting. Bakari Sellers was talking about Russia's economy, and of course, right now, about 40% of Russia's economy is predicated on energy. And basically, he said Russia is a gas station with a nuclear bomb in a tundra. That's basically all Russia is right now, with a bunch of ice skaters taking performance-enhancing drugs and doing quad jumps in their backyards. But when you look at everything that is now being said, Marjorie Taylor Greene again parroting the lie that Russia wasn't doing any of this when Trump was in office, then why was he threatening to suspend Ukraine aid if Ukraine was not pressed about Russia? Russia was in the middle of creating its campaign, as we talked about last week, of creating Russian separatists and loyalists. They didn't roll tanks because there are phases. Phases. You don't start with tanks, especially when you have an idiot in the office who you don't know how unpredictable he may be. So you lay all of the groundwork, you wait until the idiot's gone, and now you press your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when the idiot did not realize what you were doing the whole time.
Did not realize what he was doing at all. And I mean, you know, there's even to the point, and we're kind of drifting into the Putin stuff as opposed to some of the policy stuff. But I want to show this commercial that a Republican group has put out, because now, just today, Trump mildly flipped to be critical of Putin because he's killing so many people.
So many blonde hair, blue-eyed children.
The blue-eyed Melania knows some of them. They pose nude with her occasionally. So here's the clip that was produced to take down Trump, and this is a YouTube clip. So YouTube, don't ban us.
I knew Putin very well. Got a lot of great charm and a lot of pride. Putin declares a big portion of the Ukraine as independent. And I said, this is genius. And he's going to go in and be a peacekeeper. There were more army tanks than I've ever seen. They're going to keep peace all right. You got to say that's pretty savvy. I knew that he always wanted Ukraine. I used to talk to him about it.
I mean, what he's done for Russia is really amazing, and he's done it by outsmarting our country at every single step.
The day after the Olympics, he starts with Ukraine. The day after. How smart? How smart? How smart?
Yeah.
I was trying to talk over it so we might not get caught by the censors.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good. I seen you what you were doing. So this is who we have. And does anybody remember the time that speaking so highly of a Russian dictator would have been considered treasonous?
Yeah.
Like McCarthy was a whole thing.
2015 and a half.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, any and Obama never did it. So there's that.
Nobody ever did it.
Right.
Nobody has sat up there and said, "Oh, the dictator of the biggest global threat in the world is savvy for invading a sovereign nation." And when you look at the geography of Ukraine, it is a stepping stone. Like, they have a 1,200-mile border with Russia, but like they got 6 countries on the other side of Ukraine. So that's why everybody's sweating. And even Georgia came out with a petition to join the European Union. Some people,
Georgia the country.
Georgia country, yeah, there were some people who thought University of Georgia was trying to leave the SEC to join a European football league.
I hate us. That's so stupid.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So. I think my takeaway, there were some things, and I didn't throw this up, so I'm going to throw it up now. Let's look at this image. You have the vice president as a woman, and you have the Speaker of the House as a woman, standing united behind Joe Biden. And what a picture for this country. And I have to say, Kamala Harris with the color blocking, I'm not mad at you. It kind of really works with your hair.
Yeah.
Nancy, if I could advise, perhaps some smaller fake pearls.
I mean,
Those
at
are
least
those
you
are.
didn't do this,
Yeah,
right?
she did. Yeah, she did. The pearls were a bit costumey, but this is. I agree, Chuck, with you that the moments of bipartisan uh, support for Biden in the face of the threats that the country and indeed the world is facing was an inspiring moment for me. I did think that was it was appropriate.
Yeah.
It was somewhat surprising just because in the partisan divide that we have been experiencing during the entirety of the Trump years and in an
And the Obama years.
escalation of the Obama years. Yeah, it started escalating in the Obama years, but when they took over the other branches of government again, it was a little bit less because they realized that they controlled the levers of power, and so they were a little bit satisfied with having that. But it was somewhat shocking, and I think to Trump's credit, it was his asinine behavior on Russia that had some people in the GOP like, nah, we can't be down with that. We got to show more. This is our country. This is America. And to be cheering on the most aggressive and unpredictable force. Kim Jong-un, he's got nukes. And
Don't
they have
think the moose can make it to California.
they absolutely can make it to California, but you know what? What he doesn't have? The capability to survive. And he doesn't have enough missiles to kill everybody. He got a few missiles, but we have anti-missile technology, and there would be no North Korea.
Thank you.
It'd be Korea.
Yeah.
with a big smoking crater between South
Korea.
Korea. Yeah, Korea. Between China.
That was terrible, and we apologize for doing it.
We apologize, but that was for you, Kim Jong-un. That was for you, Kim Jong-un. But Russia is different. Russia does have the capability to take us into the final act of war games with Matthew Broderick. They can do that.
Global thermonuclear war.
War.
People too young to remember.
Too young to remember.
Shall
we play a game? That's what we're talking about.
Raise your hand if you remember those drills when we were kids, having to sit up.
Oh, the duck and cover drill.
Duck and cover.
What was getting under the desk gonna do for you?
Right, I never understood that, other than kiss you behind goodbye. Right. I mean, that's pretty much all you can do in the squat position up under.
Was it so you can make sure all the bones stayed with the body when they came looking for you?
Yeah, it never made sense to me, but it's an interesting, very interesting times that we're in, and y'all. I don't feel about this. I want to throw it out there, but there's been a lot of chatter this week about the mental health status of Vladimir Putin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to wonder, is he that unstable to sign his own death certificate by nuking some of our NATO allies? I mean, those are the countries that are in the crosshairs the most. He keeps hinting, if we do a no-fly zone, if we engage in any way militarily, I keep wondering whether that's bluff. I can't. I don't want to risk it, but I keep wondering, is that just him talking shit? That's the best way that I can put it. Or is he serious that if we put up a no-fly zone, he's going to start launching missiles toward France and Poland and Belgium and UK?
So I know that Putin does not represent a large swath of Russian citizens. That being said, there is a soul of scorched earth mentality in the wars that Russia has fought in the past. Again, could be due in large part to the leader that said, this is what you're going to do, as the citizens suffered in silence because they had nowhere to go. But remember, what was it, when they were up against, Napoleon, and they just set fire to everything and salted everything in their wake so that he could not take advantage of the land at all in any way, knowing that if it worked and they won, they was going to have to go back and live there. I believe that he will do it because I don't think he bluffs. I think that he will set fire to some shit, and he may not. And if he did it, he would do them all at once.
I will say this. The one thing that makes me take a counter position to that assertion is naked greed.
Okay.
Vladimir Putin is an old guy who, according to some policy analysts, just because of his position, who owns 25% of every commercial enterprise in Russia. And so the valuation of his assets, this is literally a king on earth who has the money to be the king. The queen, they have all these holdings, but they're not cash rich. Vladimir Putin is cash rich. Vladimir Putin is that dude who can get whatever he wants on this planet. He doesn't really need these countries. He likes projecting an image of strength, but I don't think he's crazy. I think he's too cool to be crazy. And I think what he wants to do is to maintain, just like he is who Trump aspires to be, actually in control, actually a ruthless dominator, actually a person who's willing to kill opponents, actually a person who can't be removed from power, who is also enormously wealthy. Because if you were at the top of the food chain, you might be on that old après moi le déluge, Louis XV foolishness, or 16th, 15th, 16th. Anyway, him. You might be on that, but it doesn't strike me that he's ready to blow up the whole world. Because I think he is savvy enough to understand that that's what would happen. And so I don't think he is going to do that. I honestly don't. But he is certainly playing a game to see how far he can go. Because I do believe if he can get the Crimean Peninsula, he would like to have that. And he's also enough of a narcissist to know that the forces that he is engaged to create this Russian separatist or Russian loyalist movement within Ukraine, if he can reclaim a portion of the country that has fealty to Russia, then he would consider that the sort of diplomatic win that he has not been able to have in certain other aspects since, Russia shrank right before he came into power. He would like to be the guy who got a little bit of that get back. Sure. But I don't think he's ready to blow things up. I think he's too much a Bezos to do that. He moved his yacht. He had a yacht in Germany, and when they froze his assets, he moved that yacht. So,
my thing, though, is, and I hear you, and I agree with what you're saying. I do. And I think that takes it back to his mental state. Because if he is a rational human being, everything you say goes. If he has tipped a little over to the I don't give irrational side, and decides that, I don't like these kids, no way. Like, I hate my kids, I hate my wife, I hate this life. Somebody said, what if he has a disease? I'm dying of the world, and let it all burn. If I can't have it, nobody can, and I will set it all on fire just to prove I can. And then there's a mid ground where he thought he was going to win this quickly, and he realizes that he can't. And so in a final bluff of strength, misplaced, this is shooting somebody. This is shooting somebody after you already been handcuffed. Like, you know what?
Right.
I'm gonna go out in the blaze. Set it off style. He could do that.
Okay, so we're basically saying Vladimir Putin is Queen Latifah at this point.
Yeah, he can go clean on everybody.
I just when our Sharpie put in that Tanya Graves, who said that maybe he has a near-death disease. Everything that you were basically describing, hating his wife, hating his kids, hating the world, we're talking about the sequel to Tenet. Basically, with Vladimir Putin playing the role from our esteemed British colleague who, with a sketchy Russian accent, managed to try to make sense out of that otherwise indecipherable movie. I don't care what people think. I'm going to take a brief side. Tenet is not genius. Tenet was people running backwards in a third act scene that was so confusing as to be absolutely indecipherable, with an end run goal that nobody possibly understood, and Denzel Washington's son poorly pronouncing espresso. That's what Tenet was. It was not great. And Putin is not a great leader, but he is a great dictator. Now, he is not going to be cowed into going back. But to be clear, he's already destroyed a lot of stuff. It's not like he went in and dropped feather dusters on those people.
He ain't destroyed it. They still broadcasting. It's not destroyed.
Well, no, but there's I'm not talking about the tower. Yes, they are still doing that, and Volodymyr Zelensky is standing strong and resolute.
Can
Uh,
we talk about Zelensky for a second?
let's talk about Zelensky because Zelensky's going out like a G. Like,
Zelensky was comrade steal your girl for like 48 hours because his statements,
yeah, he
like I
was.
say, I teach like psychological safety and authenticity, et cetera, and diversity and inclusion at work all the time. And one of the reasons that so many people are flocking or are drawn to him like a moth to a flame is because he spoke from the heart. And it's very rare for a leader, especially someone who's a leader of a country, to just open up and be like, nah, it is what it is. This is what we doing, son. Like he went straight Brooklyn on everybody. I don't need a ride. I need guns. Like that's me paraphrasing in my own vernacular what he said. But that was it wasn't planned because some people try to compare him to Churchill in the way that he is garnering support and admiration and love for his country. But everything Churchill said was planned. Everything he did was written and scripted, and I did take nothing away from the fact that he's a great orator and he'll be remembered as such forever. But this dude was just didn't give a damn that the cameras were rolling and said what he wanted to say, and he meant that shit. You talk about say it with your chest. He said it with his chest, and nobody's gonna forget that. And as we've seen with our own country, people love a rock star, a celebrity, a show that was a show of strength that Putin cannot emulate because he is the attacker.
Right.
When you got extra muscles, nobody cares that you can punch. But when you're
Right.
a little guy fighting back and getting a good swing, everybody remembers and they want to come and help you. And so, in a nutshell, that's what we're seeing in the world right now.
Yeah, I am not certain how this is going to play out for Zelensky. I'd like to believe that he will emerge from this incursion, that the sanctions will drive Russia back, that Putin will craft some sort of message that indicates that the Russian loyalists have been liberated from the oppression of Ukraine, and blah 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 blah. And he may take a sliver of territory that Ukraine will eventually negotiate to get back. He's got to have something to save face because this is who he is. But whether or not it turns into something that the rest of the world can't sustain is another question. Nobody wants to be up against the entire rest of the world. And as big as Russia is, there's a whole lot of Russia that's not occupied.
Yeah.
So it looks big on a map. It's gigantic on a map, but it's not so many places than people are living. And so
living on the edges, literally.
They're living on the edges.
I'm gonna put this comment up. But as we spoke about
Last week.
Show, don't be putting these dissertations in here because look at this.
Chan.
Now, but he does make a good point.
It is a good point.
And for those who can't read this tiny writing on your phone, it's not. He's speaking of
Putin's narcissism.
Putin. It's not just narcissism. Ukraine aligning with NATO puts us, the enemy, very close to Moscow with no natural border. Next step would be him having to beef up his border defenses, and with Russia's economy pre-Ukraine slowly collapsing, its population shrinking, having to do that would accelerate the collapse of Russia. Very salient point. I'm gonna need you to break that shit up though next time.
Yeah, next time. But here's the thing. If Putin wasn't being such an irredeemable dickhead, there would be no reason for NATO to be massing munitions against the border. We're trying to live in an era of peace. I mean, there are lots of countries that share borders with China, right?
Mm-hmm.
NATO isn't putting missiles in Mongolia.
Right.
If you chill, China is a huge economy right now. China's making your iPhones. China's not trying to have nuclear weapons in your iPhones. They want all that. The Shenzhen is like, nah, we need to keep making stuff. They're sick of COVID. That's what China just wants stuff off their ships and into consumers. That's what they're trying to do right now. They don't give a flick about the rest of this. It's Putin who's trying to do all this stuff. And he's leveraging the fact that global supply issues, everything else has driven up the point of oil to where he feels he has all this money. But he's not the only game in town. And if the United States decided to briefly interrupt our commitment to climate change and to tap some of the resources that we do have, some of the reserves that we have, because there's lots of oil in North America. There really, really is. But we have been trying to play a longer game about the future of the planet. If Putin makes it necessary and we decide to tap some of that stuff and drop the price of oil, then Russia would really be in trouble. And it's like some $3 trillion of assets that are frozen in banks right now. And one of the Sharpies put in the post that only 7 of the 300 SWIFT banks have apparently targeted Russia. But there are plenty of ways that Russia is feeling the pinch right now. And it's not like the people in Russia have an active voice to voice their complaints about Putin's shenanigans. But at the same time, the entire world has reacted. When they trumped that, no, I'm not going to use. When they vetoed the UN security sanction against Russia because they have a permanent seat on the board. The writing was on the wall, and they're not done with making these official statements. No, the UN is somewhat toothless, but when the entire world is like, you got to chill for real, son. On God, son, you got to really chill because we're not having it. Nobody is interested. All those countries that used to be a part of the Soviet Union, ain't one of them trying to come back into your embrace. Not even Kazakhstan, yo.
There was a reason that the Soviet Union collapsed in the first place.
Exactly.
It was financially untenable to continue, as you and Joy have outlined, to govern that vast swath of land that, again, most of which is uninhabitable, right? You're suppressing industry, you're suppressing the free flow of ideas that could inspire great new industries and what have you. Nobody wants to go back to that, right? And so I like how you put that, and I'm not going to lie, there's a part of me that's been somewhat surprised at how poorly the Russian military has operated in the last week. All our lives, we've grown up. Joy, I talked about Tom's dad and my dad were military men. So we grew up military brats. And all our lives, we listened to our dads and their colleagues talking about fighting that war. Because make no mistake, Vietnam here, Iraq, Gulf War there, all of that those were small hot wars that were not the main purpose behind what the U.S. military was preparing for. U.S. military was preparing since 1945 to beat the shit out of Russia, out of the Soviet Union. Make no mistake. And so with that and understanding that, at the end of the day, I'm somewhat surprised that I thought it would have been over by now, just to be dead honest. I mean, just think about it. When we had our foolish expedition in Iraq, and again, I'm not talking about Afghanistan, and I'll explain the difference in a minute. But when we had our foolish expedition in Iraq had an army that was 4 million strong, a standard conventional army, and we tore through them like shit through a goose in a matter of weeks, back in 2003. Now, some will say, well, wait a minute, Chuck, we didn't tear through Afghanistan. That's because the U.S. military, like Russia, is not situated well to fight guerrilla wars where you have counterinsurgencies and stuff like that. But the U.S. military is damn sure set up to, if you've got your 3 million men over here, we're going to beat your ass in the field. We got more tanks, we've got more missiles, we've got more planes, we're better training, that kind of fight. So I was shocked that Russia, has not done well in a conventional type war setting like that. I'm like, I guess if they had rolled into Germany, they would have gotten their asses whooped. If you get, I mean, again, I say, wow, but seriously, I've been a little shocked that they are not doing better than what they're doing right now.
Well, I am not surprised at that for precisely the reasons you said. I did not expect them to come in and dominate because you've got these Ukrainians and there are some fights in which scrap does matter. And you cannot convince me that ideologically the Russian army is like, we've got to do this to protect Mother Russia. They're not. It's not the same fight.
Good point.
And when you are defending your nation from a hostile, strong aggressor, it's very different from, man, we got to go over here and take these potatoes from the goddamn Ukrainians. Like, for real?
Right.
I was trying to watch that ice skating chick.
Right.
Like, I'm away from home.
They have Gen Z in their army just like everybody else.
Everybody else. They all disaffected. Checking Facebook like, Come on. Oh, man, they turned off Facebook in Russia. God damn. Can I get some Ukrainian Wi-Fi to do some TikTok up in this hole? Like, so it's all, that part doesn't surprise me. What does surprise me, I guess, to the extent that Putin must be sitting down and taking stock of what his perception was versus what his perception is and what his perception finna be. Because when you were quiet, everybody was scared of you. But now that you've moved and these little dissidents are kind of whooping your tail, now it's like, well, wait a minute. Do we really need to be scared of Putin
quiet
anymore?
and menacing all day, and then you open your mouth and this high-pitched squeal come out. Like
that's what it's just like. You remember Rick Moranis in Spaceballs? So he had the helmet. He was dark helmet, and then it flipped up, and he was like, "Oh, come on, guys!" And it's like that's what it is.
This is it, right?
Yeah. Wait. You're shorter than I thought you were gonna be.
Absolutely.
And quietly, people talking about how masculine he was on that horse, bro. Them little soggy pecs were nothing to write. Just let me eat my goulash right. Thank you. Can I get some smoked paprika over here, please? Some chicken paprikash.
Right, and he's about what 5'5", maybe 5'6".
Listen, is he that short? He's not that short.
He ain't that tall. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, Tom. Obama's about what 6'1".
Oh yeah, Obama's a lot taller. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, and Obama looked like he could tap him on his head easily. In that famous picture of the staircase.
He's 5'7".
Yeah, 170 centimeters tall. So let's say 170 centimeters because it makes it seem so much shorter.
Yeah, he's a little dude. right. He's a little dude, man.
He little. He little.
That's why Trump liked him, because he got little hands just like Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 5'7". I'm just saying.
My daughter's 5'7" too. And a lot taller in heels, because y'all ladies be jacking up your height with the heels because y'all can do that. I want to take a moment briefly to
Mussolini. What was the guy's name?
Oh,
well, Napoleon. And actually Napoleon wasn't. Let's be clear.
Napoleon was like
he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't actually that short.
Yeah.
People look at that picture.
5'7". Now I will agree with this.
Yeah, well, there's that. Little dictator energy too. it's all the energies. It's what we're doing.
Yeah, these are the actions of a man that cannot hit not near a wall. That's what that is.
Basically.
My Putin walls.
You know what? You did that. I wasn't even going there.
Yeah. There's a place where I'm from called Ukraine. So
messing around real quick before we go to anything else. I want to address this. Another long comment. Y'all gonna cut this out. Oh. But Andrea Howard Oliver, or Andrea Howard, either way. This is her comment about how Russia was collapsing, etc. She goes, "I'm not surprised at all. Oligarchs suck all the money out of their treasuries and do not invest in any aspect of their country. When the army realizes Putin and them don't care about them, Russia will really be in trouble." And my rejoinder to that is, so will the United States. Like, sooner or later, we're going to figure out that the oligarchs in this country are sucking all of the resources and money out of our country. And when them minimum wage ass soldiers who struggle to even get funding nowadays figure that shit out, and they've been weapons trained, we gonna be fucked.
I mean, well,
decades out.
We already got the white supremacists doing that same thing. They've already learned. They got the weapons training and dropped out, or got themselves dishonorably discharged, and then gone and live into a forest with the other incel buddies. A part of this Ukraine insurgent issue and the fight against Ukraine that has been underreported, surprise, is that it is unveiling the inherent racism of this environment. And so I want to play this video from a person who I think has a particularly astute angle on that issue, and it is Amanda Seales.
When we see the media talking about these Ukrainians as if they are just like this anomalous group of people that, because of their whiteness, they can't understand how they can be in this situation.
Now the unthinkable has happened to them. And this is not a developing third world nation. This is Europe.
On est au 21e siècle, on est dans une ville européenne et on a des tirs de missiles de croisière comme si on était en Irak ou en Afghanistan, vous imaginez?
What they're saying without saying is that they can understand why Palestinians are in their situation. What they're saying is they can understand why Central Americans, why Mexicans. Basically what they're saying is they can understand why anybody who's not white is in any situation that is similar to the current Ukrainian situation.
Me, I'm sorry, it's very emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed, children being killed every day with Putin's missiles.
And what that means is what they're saying is that they don't consider anyone who's not white civilized.
Pologne, parce que ça va être une question importante. Et je parle pas, on parle pas là de Syriens qui fuient les bombardements du régime syrien soutenu par Vladimir Poutine. On parle d'Européens qui partent dans leurs voitures qui ressemblent à nos voitures, qui prennent la route et qui essayent juste de sauver leur vie, quoi. Et ça, c'est une question qui va être importante pour l'Europe.
Alors que... But this isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan, that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
When you look at what happened in the last refugee crisis in Europe back in 2015, Poland was one of the EU countries that, was hesitant to take in refugees. Talk about what has changed and a different position now.
Yeah, well, just to put it bluntly, these are not refugees from Syria. These are refugees from neighboring Ukraine. I mean, that, quite frankly, is part of it. These are Christians, they're white.
So, in particular, when Black people look to othered groups, and we say, we should all be in solidarity, this is a scenario where you can look and see they don't like y'all either. No.
That was real. And we have a graphic of some of the racist antics that are taking place in countries today. This is Black people sitting in train stations where they cannot get on trains to get out of the country because other non-melanated Ukrainians are being given priority. This is the state. Literal pictures, literal video of Black people being pushed off trains so that white Ukrainians can get on the trains and get out of the country. And you have Americans who are trying to flee. Sean Penn had to walk over the border to get out of the country because he couldn't get out any other way. I mean, this is what we're talking about. And you listen to the language that is being used, and they're not even trying to hide it. There was one guy on there who said, I need to choose my language. I need to say this carefully. Everybody else is like, nah, son, they like us. What the fuck is going on? Like,
at least we tried, right?
Right. I mean, these are blonde and blue-eyed people who are getting killed. What? That we can't have that. And the only thing that is different, literally, the only thing that is different is that, because you remember, when Assad was bombing his own people with Putin's assistance, was when he was using chemical weapons against his own people in Syria, it was like, they're always fighting. They can't keep the peace. That's the Middle East, whatever. This same Putin who is now pushing against under-melanated people is all of a sudden a real problem. And the only good of that insidious racism is that the entire world community is like, you need to back down now. Back it back down now. And I'm going to try to unmute you, Joy. But we are in a scenario. We're in a scenario where the entire world is somewhat united around the notion of solving the Putin problem, and that brings me a small measure of hope.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, Sadita Graves makes a great point. Says that this is why I don't give a fuck at times about Ukrainian people, and I think we all have been there. Like when I've been sounding the alarm, I have been very selfishly sounding the alarm of I don't want to get vaporized in a global nuclear holocaust. It's not
Right.
that I've been sitting here in Tallahassee like, oh God, I'm crying for Ukraine. No, because I recognize that there are racist white folks in Ukraine, just like
Right.
racist.
We
Oh,
understand when a fight break out in the club, you got to get out the club.
out
Absolutely.
the
The
club.
doors are locked, and so
Absolutely. It's a self-preservation thing here for
That's
me.
right. Especially if Inflatable Fitty is in the club.
Exactly.
leave send it alone. I have one other video I'd like to show. I don't have it backed up right, but if you would, I'm gonna take y'all out. So this is one of the girls I follow on TikTok, and she had. You got to listen close because she likes to whisper, but she had another great analogy of how people are shocked at what's happening in the Ukraine. Check this out.
Oh my God, the war in Ukraine, it's so terrible. It's terrible, and it's just so terrible. No, I know it's incredibly tragic, and my heart goes out to all the Ukraine. You know, it's just not something you expect to see in Europe. I mean, conflict happens everywhere, and it's incredibly sad when it does. But yeah, but for it to happen to Europeans. Yeah, I mean, when war happens to anyone, I would find it quite horrible. Yeah, but that could have been me. You know what I mean? It could have been me. Oh, are you Ukrainian? No. I think my mom was Swedish at some point, though, so maybe... So what's your point? Just to see people who look just like you getting hit by bombs, it hurts. No, I know, I totally get it. I mean, I've been seeing that my whole life. Yeah, but it's different. It's different for you. Why? Because, you know, war is supposed to happen in the Middle East. That's where war comes from. No, it doesn't. No, it is, because why else would we have put so much time and effort into destabilizing that entire region so we could just group them all together, keep the issue centralized, so we can carpet bomb them all at once? Why would we have done that? It's like, what? Do you watch the new episode of Euphoria? Yeah, I did. Well, I didn't, so no spoilers.
It do be facts though.
Yeah.
Right. I follow her. She's actually hilarious. Except for the whole whispering thing, it's hard to hear. But her whole point is exactly what you were talking about. Is this whole? But it could have happened to me. I think this is their first time, at least this young generation, 50 and under, of them realizing, yes, motherfucker, it could happen to you too. It's what we've been trying to tell you your whole damn life is that you need to understand what solidarity really looks like and quit picking over little stupid shit about whether or not I could drink out of your water fountain and understand that other people are coming to murder us all. It's always been us against the aliens, you know what I'm saying? But y'all keep fucking around being worried about whether or not I got 5% more in my pay, which is still 15% less than you. You know, you stupid things. And then when you realize, oh my God, the world isn't safe. And I don't know if y'all caught it, but one of the points that she made in that video was, she's like, the thought of having to worry about and see people that look like me, like killed on television is traumatizing. She's like, yeah, I live with that every day. So welcome. Yeah. And so do a lot of highly melanated people. We've been living with that our whole lives. Watching people that look like us get murdered by our own country and then gaslight us and tell us it's our own fault and then tell us we should be ashamed for not loving the country more. It is an abusive relationship. We are in an abusive relationship with the United States.
Amen.
And it's a parental abuse as well. It's not like we married and we can just get divorced. This is all my food comes from this place and I'm not prepared to leave. And so we stay in this abusive relationship.
That's a hell of a point, Joy. That's a very, very great point that you just made. And you know, one of the things that's been frustrating to me and all of us, I know, but I saw it was a clapback to a tweet where I guess some pilgrim had made the comment about, have you ever seen in the history of the world people fighting back so valiantly, and people started lighting off. Yeah, like you talking about like the Choctaw and the Chickasaw and the Sioux and
every indigenous tribal group
when they were
on this
playing
continent.
Imperial whatever, and I was sitting up like, yeah, like Toussaint and the Haitians, and and my man Nat Turner against your great granddaddy them up there in Virginia, like we've been fighting. Yeah, exactly. That's what
he was talking about Toussaint Louverture.
Yeah. I mean, it's but that goes back to the whole invisible man, invisible woman thing. There are people here in this country who don't see us; they only see themselves, y'all. Period. And so, of course, it's going to hit them harder. It's just like when you see terrorist acts happen in Paris, and Facebook puts up the damn things that you can change your profile pic to, and everybody is sitting there like, oh God, J. Suisse Paris and all this type of shit. And I mean, don't get me wrong, God bless the Parisians that got killed, but you don't see that same energy when nonsense happens among people of color by white folks who are doing the subjugating. And so it's all wrong. But again, I reiterate, for those who are like, boy, Hobbs is really, and Tom and Joy, they really caping hard. No, I want to live. Okay, period. I ain't, it sucks what's happening in Ukraine, but again, Joy hit it out the park right out the gate. They've been fighting in Europe from time immemorial. It's not going to stop. Okay, it's what they do in on that continent for whatever reason. And I know people say there are wars, but not wars that could fuck up the whole world. Okay, so if there's some fighting in Africa or some fighting in South America or Central America, yeah, it's fucked up for that locale, but only in Europe can the world potentially end. And if that ain't the worst form of white supremacy, I don't know what the fuck is. I mean, to tell
you have to really consider is that the only reason that the two world wars are called world wars is because they involve Europe. There have been bigger wars.
Yeah. Joy, there were some ancestors of ours in Africa who have no idea who Hitler was, Stalin,
at all.
Mussolini, had no clue that none of that shit was going on up in Europe from 1939 to 1940.
No, they were chilling.
Yeah.
Now, you made a point, Chuck, about how Facebook responds, and I know that some of the Sharpies have probably seen this meme, but it came across my timeline for the first time, and it's been adjusted as memes do. But this is where we are.
Yeah.
So, like, because the current thing just changes all the time. And speaking of current things, I don't know who slipped a Cialis into Lil Lindsay's oat milk, but he came out today talking about
oat milk.
Missy.
We need to assassinate Putin. So we went from his massa saying Putin is a very savvy genius to we've got to assassinate him. And so I guess, Lindsay was trying to buck up for a heavy weekend at a leather bar or something. But
I read a headline right before I came into the studio, so I don't have any detail. But it was a headline on my Google feed or whatever that said that Pence was going to deliver a speech tonight and say the GOP party cannot be the party of Russian apologists. Like he was about to come out with that statement.
Well, he needs to.
That's a lie. Pence ain't bound to say that.
But it's overdue. And like Tom said about 20, 30 minutes ago, did we ever think we would live in a country where the damn Republican Party is cheering for somebody in Russia? I mean, again, when we grew up, both parties were against it. But man, I'm talking Ron Reagan. Come on, man. I mean, they hated the Soviet Union, okay? It's ridiculous, man. And so it's long overdue. And that's why, Tom, you had also alluded to this too, that there's been a somewhat limited pivot by Donald Trump. And the only reason he's somewhat slightly, maybe partially saying it's wrong, what's going on, is because the public sentiment is shifting amongst his sycophantic followers. There's a whole lot of Republicans in this country who don't like what's happening over in Ukraine. And so he's reading the tea leaves and realizing okay, they're not following behind me, so maybe I need to dial back all this crazy shit I was saying last week, you know?
Well, and to be sure, I was not saying you were wrong, Joy. I was just saying I don't believe Pence has the stones to say it. And of course, in researching it quickly,
I didn't think that you thought I was wrong. I just put the comments up.
No, that's fine. He is saying this to a group of private RNC donors.
I mean, it's still in the news, though. It's like
no, it is.
That's going to be like his. Remember when Romney said the thing about the 57%? That was a private donor function too.
It was, and we'll see who got the video. Not that Pence,
but
Pence doesn't matter anyway.
It or not, it's been outed that he will. He already has, as far as
it's in his prepared remarks. But the thing is, raise your hand if you believe Pence has a career in politics, especially presidential politics. So I mean,
no, you said no. Oh no.
Yeah. So it's like great. So that's like saying Gerald Ford from the grave issued a condemnation of Putin. It matters not. The good news about this week, the best news about this week, is that Trump has actually taken a hit. This was a landmine. He thought he could turn it into Joe's week. You can say Joe's weak and not say Putin is good. You could have gone with half of the thing, but you went with the whole thing. And now it's redounded on you in a way that you did not anticipate. And that plus all of the legal trouble you're in, that plus your kids being subpoenaed, that plus executive privilege going away, that plus all these other things. This is where Trump actually gets in trouble. The Cubans in Miami are, but yes, they are. I'm sure they are. Because that too. It's actually pretty incredible what we're seeing. And while we're on the topic of white supremacy, I'd like to pivot because it's time to talk about one of my favorite objects of scorn. Somebody, it wasn't me, although I have used this sobriquet for him. Fucker Carlson had the unmitigated gall and temerity to want to see Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's LSAT score. Carlson.
He might as well have tried to strip search him. What the fuck wrong?
Did you get into Harvard? Did you get into Harvard Law? And were you an editor?
Do you have a degree?
He has a degree.
He has a degree.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be clear. The reason that we know Tucker Carlson is that he is a trust fund baby whose granddaddy invented frozen vegetables. I mean, maybe not invented, but
we've been dying ever since.
You still have probably some Swanson frozen vegetables, if that's still a brand, if they just didn't get gobbled up by Green Giant. So you still getting checks when you buy your frozen veggies from Tucker Carlson's granddaddy's company or whatever.
Yeah.
So he didn't need these sorts of things. And for where are your SAT scores?
Yeah.
Where are they at? SAT, because you didn't take the LSAT because you didn't go to law school. How dare you? How dare you even try? And you gonna sit up in here and lie to your people on your show, talk about, I don't understand why people say I praise Putin, because there's a supercut of you damn near using his nuts as a throat lozenge.
Yep.
Fisherman's friend.
Yeah.
So the problem with you, Fucker Carlson, is that you think you are in the memory hole. You aren't even throwing things into the memory hole. You're just sitting on the event horizon of the memory hole. So you could just like bat things this way, bat things that way, and do your little Neo moves and just let facts just slip right past you when you were confronted with them. But there's only so many people that are going to be in that sliver. You got your 10 million or however many, 4 million viewers, whatever it is, it's your little highest rated self. But that means there's a whole lot more people who are not watching Tucker.
Thank you.
A whole lot more people who are not watching. And it doesn't matter that they're watching MSNBC or not watching MSNBC, or that your next highest competition is 2 million viewers below you. That matters to your paycheck, but it doesn't matter to the political reality of the country. You're absolutely right. He does need to. Yeah, that's right. I said it. and it's the truth. He can't pick which scrotum he wants to gargle at any given moment. He's just dancing from Putin to Trump to back to anybody but Mike Pence and anybody but on the January 6th committee. And I'd be surprised if Rupert Murdoch and some other bigwigs at Fox, if this thing goes very much longer, I'd be surprised if there would be a moratorium on Putin praise if this goes on a little bit money. So, ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, Tanya with the with the read.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you.
You know, I'm gonna say, Tucker and his ilk. All of them. They find themselves in a weird place because they've spent so much time soaking their skin in this rhetoric, and so far up the ass of 45 that a colonic would not get them out. Right?
Not at all.
You tapeworm. You had to go in and get them. And so they spend so much time up in there. Now that they are being excreted, clearly nobody wants to touch them. This is gaining legs for me. This analogy. Don't nobody want to touch them, right? Because they nasty. But here's the thing: do you try to clean yourself up, knowing that you will never again be accepted because of where you've been? Because if they try to backpedal now, that's what you're gonna be. You're gonna be a turd with a bow on it. We know where you've been this whole time. Your hands still stink, Or do you try to double down and crawl back up that ass because at least it's warm in there? There's no way for him to win. There's no way for him to get back in anybody's good graces. So it looks like he's just decided to crawl back up that ass to see how long.
I did not mean to. I was trying to delete it. I was trying to delete it. And it was so loud. I apologize, Joy. You finish your comment. I apologize.
No, you know what? It's just like the TikTok says when the beat drops, but the commercial comes over. That's what you just did to me, man. Right. Bada boom. 1 mile. It's too late.
Well, and speaking of commercial interruptions, y'all saw the drama when CNN was covering Ukraine and they inserted like an Applebee's ad, just like in the middle of it. And people just, and it was just. I'm sorry, CJ. I was legit just trying to delete that video and it accidentally triggered. I apologize. It's something that can happen when the Sharpies on screen are trying to make the best show for the Sharpies who are watching. And so I deeply apologize because that was loud.
Button on me.
Yeah, that was loud as hell. And I apologize. So, whoo. Oh my goodness. Fun times. Before we are just about at an hour and we wanted to keep this very directed on things. Before we go, what is on your mind? Oh, we should mention just briefly that the Image Awards have happened, the SAG Awards have happened. There have been some exciting developments in what could potentially be the Oscar race. Will Smith is emerging as a front runner because of his wins for King Richard, and lots of really outstanding performances amongst various casts from the SAG Awards, and lots of people are doing very exciting things. I'm feeling pretty good. I think this could actually be Will's year. I don't think that, I mean, I know why Denzel gets nominated because he's Denzel and it was a prestige piece and it was very well crafted and all of that. I just don't see that performance as being one that broke through for me. But certainly Will Smith has been absolutely phenomenal. And, he's riding the wave with his book and Bel Air and King Richard, and people are just really into what he's doing. So
He's been campaigning for this Oscar for real.
for a while, well, but I mean, he's had several bites at the apple, and not
Right.
undeservedly so.
Every time he go up, I mean, he just get outclassed, right? I mean, ain't nothing you can really do. Like the year he went up for playing
Ali,
Ali, didn't he go up against Ray?
was he against? Well, I can look that
I
up.
remember the field was really, really thick, and I was like, Will ain't about to get this now.
Nah.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's happened to him is, nah, bro, it's too many heavy hitters in your category. Sorry, son.
So he was nominated in 2002, and let's see who he was up against. Oh no, it was The Pianist.
Oh yeah.
Wait, no, that's not right, because he's not even listed in 2002. Oh, Will Smith, he went again. It was Training Day. He lost to Denzel
Yeah, he was going
for
to
Training
lose
Day.
Training Day, even though it's not as popular. It was interesting to me, as I always try to explain to people why certain people win Oscars for weird roles, is because when you do something that they didn't think you could do,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody thought that Denzel
Was going to be the
poster
bad guy.
child for morality in the Black community could do dirty motherfucker, and he did every time. Like I remember when I was in the theater, these two white women behind me, like I just like saying that word, like because he kept saying the N word through the whole movie, and they were just bothered, like physically bothered, watching Denzel be this guy. They just it was skeevy, and to make them feel like that is, hey, it's a hell of an actor.
Yeah, no, he I can it would not be the role that I would have recognized Denzel for as best actor.
No, Hurricane was his best role.
Hurricane was phenomenal. And I really would have preferred that be the one that he took the trophy for, because when you get two, it becomes a lot hard. I mean, unless you're Meryl Streep, it becomes a lot harder to get more than two. So, but if Will wins for King Richard, I would feel it's well deserved. I think he's done a phenomenal job, and Anjanou Ellis has done a phenomenal job in that film as well. So I'm very pleased. I think that this very well possibly could be his year, and if it is his year, then it will be well deserved. I really do.
Yeah, we calling it for Will. We all hoping Will wins.
We are all. Yeah.
Will, we wish you the best. If you ever want to come on the show and talk about your experiences, we're open to it.
Yeah.
We don't pay it.
We absolutely promise that there won't be a Laverne Cox moment either.
No.
Promise. So I'm kind of a feeling. I kind of feel like I want to give you guys some payback for that accidental explosion of audio. And so I would like to bring a little cheer into the room and just revisit something that brought so much unmitigated joy to the entire Sharpie stadium of viewers.
Let's block out. There's black. There's a difference between black and niggers.
Hey, Bill Kier, watch out.
Oh, shit. Shut your goddamn mouth. Come out your mouth again. Shut your goddamn mouth. Watch your goddamn mouth.
Come on, let's go. Let's go.
Shut your mouth.
It's the flip of the hat. The flip of the hat just makes it perfect. Now, Vera, we played it twice last week.
No, we're not gonna play it again. You can find it on the YouTubes and the Tickets of Toxes and the Instagram faces, and you can find it yourself. Slapfest, yeah, we're going to keep Slapfest just like we keep some other clips that we really enjoy that are always good throwbacks. That was definitely one of them. It does uplift my soul, and I apologize. I'm telling you, that was Joy slapping me for blowing that big story on her. I was not trying to do that. I promise. It brings me joy too, Carla. Speaking of good friends, both Sharpies and non, we want to give a shout out to Sharon, who was not able to be with us this week. And as always, whenever one of us is not available to be on the show, we want to recognize that we trust and hope that they are all doing well. And to that point, we want to let you guys know that next week we are taking a break. We have a circumstance in a little break. We have a circumstance where 2 of our sharpeners are not going to be available. So we are going to perhaps throw up a replay of one of our Black History shows. We haven't exactly decided. If you'd love to support the show, please invite your friends to subscribe. Please invite your friends to watch the episodes that we have on YouTube. We have dozens. Y'all, we are marching toward 100 episodes. And if you include the episodes that Chuck and I started just as podcasts, and before we brought on guests during the political season, because we were doing daily coverage of the RNC and the DNC. So we're marching toward 100, and that would be an awesome celebration. So we're trying to figure out what we would like to do to make that super special. So drop us some ideas in the chat or on the Facebook page, and we will definitely try to do something to make it super duper special for all of you. And thank you to Anthony Turner. Anthony Turner stays being our first commenter every week, welcoming you all, welcoming the rest of the Sharpies. He is the head of our usher board. Thank you, Brother Turner.
Deacon Turner.
Deacon Turner. That's Brother Turner, and we appreciate you for that. Okay, so CJ is calling for 100th show swag. We are looking into swag. We really are looking into the swaggishness. So you can drop some comments on the page and let us know what you think you would love to see from swag. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for joining us once again. I am Tom Cunningham.
I am Joy Stevens.
And I am Chuck Hobbs.
And this is Steel Sharpens Steel.